Hello, I am Woohyun from We Want to Share. Today, this lecture will cover content related to international economics and trade. Also, with special thanks to Letitu for providing the resources. The lecture will be proceeded in the following order. In the priority, we have to look at how the world market has formed throughout the history. Primitive nations adopted self-sustenance, but they felt efficiency and necessity of exchanging goods what they need, especially because resources including labor, land, and capital is scarce and each nation has different demand. It promoted trade. Then they noticed there were differences in how efficiently countries make certain resources, which is opportunity cost. So they thought they can just concentrate on producing what they are good at, leading to specialization and forming the world market world price. Especially the globalization has accelerated such trend. So to start with, let's look at some terms. Open economy indicates an economic system that allows international trade or exchanges, while closed economy does not, and it rests on the self-sustenance. Free trade excludes government intervention on trade activities, whereas protection trade includes active government policies mainly in order to protect local industries. We will look at this later. So the trend of free trade was especially with globalization, encouraged with the advance of transport technologies and the internet. And second, the world binding under neoliberalism trend after the collapse of socialist communists in 1990s. Also, emergence of international organizations such as United Nations and the International Monetary Fund, World Trade Organization also promoted globalization, and it was established to proceed Uruguay round for free trade. And also it has led FTA, which is free trade agreement, and tariff waive, which means reducing tariffs between the nations' trades. Now we'll be covering the theories to prove efficiency of trade, which are absolute advantage and comparative advantages. Absolute advantage refers to the state a nation can produce a good in lower cost or greater scale. Therefore, it has absolute superiority and efficiency in producing a certain good. So this is preeminent in the relationship of developed and developing nations, which have significant power gaps or core resources or fuel resources which is concentrated in Middle East regions. In this case, a nation can trade what they have absolute advantage. However, it could not explain why the trade is important even when a nation can have an absolute advantage for all the goods. Why do we have to trade when a nation is absolutely stronger than other nation? The comparative advantage explains for that. Its ability to produce in relatively lower opportunity cost, which means sacrificing less other goods regardless of its scale or price itself. Therefore, a country can trade what they have less opportunity cost to produce. So one country may have both absolute or comparative advantages, and we will further learn about why it actually leads to growth with the perspective of PPC curve. This is the example here. Converting to a chart, and here is US and Australia in short term, and this is Chakra, this is OA. So US can produce at this F point. 12 oats and 6 chocolates, right? So 6, 12. And in case of Australia, at the Y point, it can produce 4 chocolates and 6 oats. Right. So simply comparing, we can notice that US can produce 20 chocolates or 20 oats in maximum, right? And Australia can produce 15 chocolates and 10 oats in maximum. So we can notice that US can produce both greater than those of Australia. So we can say the US has absolute advantage on both goods because it can produce greater quantity than Australia. So absolute advantage goes to United States for both goods. However, we also have to consider opportunity cost to calculate comparative advantages. US has to give up 2 oats for 1 chocolate, and Australia has to give up 1.5 oats for 1 chocolate, right? So therefore, it means Australia has higher efficiency in producing chocolate. Therefore, Australia should specialize in producing chocolate, and because United Nations have relatively more efficiency in producing oats, so US have to focus on producing only oats. So this is the concept of comparative advantage. So even though it seems the United States have to produce both too when considering absolute advantage, in fact, it is actually efficient for US to produce only oat and Australia to produce only chocolate. Also, this curve is PPC, production possibilities curve. I didn't mention this further because it was used in only microeconomics chapters. But PPC is the curve that shows combination of quantities of production that can be maximized when utilizing all the resources and the society. So every point on this curve is efficient. Right, then let's move on. So the efficiency of free trade can be proved by looking at expansion of production possibility curves. This was original line, but we can see that the curve itself has expanded to a new line after trade. This is also the same in case of Australia. It also has expanded. So trade expands deficit, and we can easily notice that gain by pointing the gap. So this gap is benefit earned by free trade. Therefore, the change in PPC means the gain that the country gets, and because the expansion of curve means economic growth, it means a nation can actually grow its economy through free trade. So we have learned the linkage between free trade and economic growth by absolute advantage and comparative advantage. Actually, comparative advantage was suggested mainly by Adam Smith and David Ricardo, and at the medieval Europe, the society was pervaded with mercantilism, which government actually intervenes with what to produce and what to import. But they thought that it was not rational and it was not efficient at all. And they asserted free trade and they suggested those advantage theories as their basis for their arguments. However, as said earlier, there are not always best results for adopting free trade, and governments chooses to intervene in world markets in order to protection of local occupations, local industries, or to provide equal opportunities. Especially, there are some cases when local industry weakens due to influence of imported goods in lower price. Also, In case the developed and developing countries, because economic gap is too big, the competition cannot be fair and it aggravates economic polarization. Therefore, protection trade is adopted for this reason, and that are implemented in the form of tariff and quota. Tariff is a government tax levied on the foreign goods. We must know how to analyze the graph on the tariff. So we have to know three prices. This is price when there is no tariff. So we can say that this is world price, which is naturally formed in the world market. Second, there at this point, this is equilibrium of domestic market. So this price is domestic price at the equilibrium. So like this is the natural state, but government revises the tariff, then price increases about the amount of tariff, right? So this is price with tariff, and this amount as the tariff. Then let's look at how quantity changes. When there was world market, this were the imported amount, and this were the domestically produced amount. So this was that is produced domestically, and this is what is imported. However, let's look at the case when tariff is revised. Then the import has reduced to this amount because the price has gone up and there are changes in the curves. So this is new imported amount and domestically produced amount increases to this amount. So what can we know about this? Because tariff is revised per unit of imported goods, this orange shaded amount refers to government revenue about tariff multiplied by imported goods. That's government revenue. And let's look at how surplus changes. We'll look at next slide. But this was the original producer surplus, right? However, after the tariff was revised, it has increased up to this amount. There's a whole new producer surplus. Therefore, we can see that domestic producers are benefiting from the impact of tariffs. But however, because this was government intervention, it is actually kind of invading the market equilibrium, and therefore necessarily the deadweight loss has happened, which is the loss from the social surplus. So this is amount of every loss, and you also have to calculate them and draw the graph because it will be asked in AP MCQ or FRQ questions very frequently. Right. So to gain further, like we said, producer surplus increases, but consumer surplus decreases because they have to justify spend increased price. Also, intentional supply decreases because it will be more costly for producers to sell, and also domestic demand increases because there are less products that is imported. However, in the long run, it can cause unemployment and price level increase in the macroeconomic perspective. Next method is quota. Quota is placing the limits on the quantity of imported goods, and the noticeable point is that revenue transfer happens from government to importers with license. In other words, government creates zero profit, but it rather benefits import sellers having license. This is because quota only limits the quantity of goods imported. Like we can see here, the quantity is limited by quota. Yes, it is very kind of strong and direct intervention. Also, foreign producers are compelled to place higher prices on goods due to quantity regulations because it will act to lower their profits. The figure shows that a quota limits the number of goods supplied and increases the prices of foreign goods. Domestic producers, in turn, benefit from increased demand for and less expensive U.S. aluminum, and later increase the price due to substitution effect. However, only the aluminum industry will be open apace, and other industries will face losses due to the increased steel price. This may cause an increase in unemployment and price of other goods like tariffs as well. So like both of two policies can be not working well or can have bad consequences in the long term and in macroeconomic perspectives. We also have to simply just know about those terms that are sometimes asked in AP Macroeconomics FRQ or MCQ questions. Balance of payments means a total influx or leakage. To simply say, it is just total funds going in and out from a nation. Current account, CA, transactions without any liabilities, such as simple exchange of goods and services. However, capital and financial account, CFA, transactions with liability, such as bond that is issued by a nation. Two terms are both regarding in and out of capitals between nations. Also, you have to remember very important equation, that is CA equals to minus CFA. In other terms, CA plus FCA equals to 0, showing reverse relationship between two. So this is the end of prepared lecture, and we once again thank you Letitu for cooperation. Please don't forget to subscribe and press like button if the lecture was helpful. See you next time.